Hello everyone, this is Antens, and today we're going to do a hopefully quick showcase of a concept of what I'm going to be season starting in season 2, and it's going to be a Witchfire Warlock. Some of you have probably already heard about this new Witchfire builds going around, and it has everything to do with the new relic that is released, and we're going to talk a bit right now about why Witchfire just suddenly got a lot more interesting thanks to it. Um, History lesson. Witchfire previously has been kind of bad. Witchfire in and of itself is just an ailment that over 12 seconds deals 600 fire, 600 necrotic damage over time. During 1.0 this was even lower, it was 300. And you might think, oh well, that's huge amount of damage for an ailment. Well, problem is it's a single stack ailment, so we can't stack multiple of Witchfires. So we only have one. And to work against this and to make it viable, it has an inherent scaling where it scales with ignite chance and it scales with damage chance with double the efficiency of damage chance. So how you scaled Witchfire and how we still scale it was by stacking ignite and damned chance. And you could get it to do pretty okay damage. Like, it's an ailment, it's a passive damage source that doesn't really need to be focused on to work. So it was decent. Problem though, Witchfire was only procced and could only afflict enemies when you got both ignite and damned overload, which means that if we had ignite overload, the second we proc damned overload was when Witchfire activated, so to say, and spread out to the enemies within 10 meters. This was a huge problem during mapping because it made it very, very inconsistent, because you never knew when you would be proccing your overloads unless you carefully managed them. A strategy that could be used, which awful, is to never use a fire spell, so you only run around with damned overload, and then use a fire spell to proc the ignite overload when it was a rare or something. Very, really bad. Like, you would just play it passively and hope for the best. That was the strategy that was used with it. Now, however, we got a new unique. And this unique makes it so when we have ignite overload and damned overload, enemies within 10 meters are inflicted with Witchfire every second. This means it's super consistent. We just need to make sure we have ignite and damned overload at the same time, and everything will be Witchfired. That in itself is really good. However, they also added on some more funky stuff. And what they did was that they added a new avenue for us to scale Witchfire. In this case, Witchfire deals more damage, equal to 66% of increased curse damage. So now we can both stack ailments, or we can stack ignite and damned, and we can stack increased curse damage. Naturally, it's also a damage over time. It's quite a weird damage over time because it's divided into fire and necrotic, half and half. But we can scale both of these with the suitable affixes, like damage over time. Elemental damage over time would only count for the fire part. Necrotic damage will only count for the necrotic part. But you get the gist of it. Now, problem. Increased curse damage. This already has quite a lot. It has up to 160. But that affix is super rare. It's quite hard to get a lot of it. Or at least that's what we would want to think. Now, TLDR, I'm not gonna show you every source of generic curse damage there are. Actually, I'm going to show you one because it's quite interesting and it's also something new with the patch. And that is, we have to change the weapon. there is a new prefix, which is Sinatra's Dying Breath Reforged, which gives us up to 213 curse damage. Super cool. So this is one of the sources that more or less was meant for this relic. But we ain't actually using it, and I'll talk about that later on. Did we get everything here? It's fine. So anyway, generic curse damage is what we want. It's quite hard to get, but there are a couple of ways. One of which I found out through Cursed Boy stream, where, and I actually knew about this tech because it had been going around in a different version where you used acid skin to crit cap you, and that is that you can get this node in Lich. So all sources of health leech are converted to increased damage. Now why is this important? It's important because it's generic increased damage. And the funny part about generic increased damage is that it counts as every sort of increased damage. So when they did it with acid skin, we used it for the poison damage to crit cap. But now we use it for curse damage. So as you can see, we have a lot of increased curse damage. And a lot of it has to do with leech. Some of it has to do with just generic increased damage node that exists inside the acolyte tree. There are some. But then I also realized, because I've played a build that has been similar to this before, that there are even more ways to get this generic curse damage. And that is through affixes like increased damage while channeling. Turns out this is also a generic increased damage, so it counts towards our generic curse damage. And this is one of the reasons why we have so high, because one of the conditions that we put is channeling. Problem. This means we have to channel. And we'll go into that in a second. Other interesting thing when it comes to gearing, as we said, we want to stack ailments. And we got a new set affix that gives us up to 50% chance to ignite on rings. We got new idols with up to 20% chance to apply ignite on H1x2. And we're not sure if this works, or I am not sure if this works. I've talked to some people about it, but someone has to go test it, and I don't want to spoil this build until season 2, so I'm not going to test it. I'm going to wing it. But that is the Isatora's set, where you get 100% chance to apply damned on hit with necrotic spells. Now, problem with this is, and why I think it doesn't work, is because the Witchfire specifies that it needs to be 1% global chance to inflict damage with necrotic skills and not spells. So we will have to wait and see. But yeah, we can stack a lot of ailments. If we look at our damage chance, 670, ignite chance 556, really high amounts. Naturally, this gear is aspirational. It's probably not something it is obtainable. Calamities, 4 LP calamities, probably not gonna happen though, because this. But the rest are very much obtainable. So let's talk about it some more with gearing. So we want to stack leech, we want to stack ailments, and we want just dot damage, or in this case I've chosen to put a lot of effort into elemental damage over time. Why that is because I think, and I've done quite a lot of math on this, but it's quite wonky, but I think it's much more worth it to focus on the fire damage part of Witchfire. And one of the reasons why is because elemental damage over time affix scales higher than pure dot damage over time. Also, we have the Firestarter's Torch, and oh right, that's a very important affix to have, and we'll talk about it in a minute. But Firestar Torch also has more damage, more fire damage with spreading flames, right? It also has some good increased fire damage here. So if we want to use this, we want to focus on fire, or at least we are incentivized to do so, and that's what I've done. Now, let's get to the channeling part, and I'm going to open up the skills, and you're going to see a lot, and keep in mind this is super experimental. Everything might change, nothing might change, no one knows. We haven't played it, or at least I haven't played it, so I don't know. Ghost Flame. Ghost Flame is a channeling skill where you are allowed to move if you grab Spirit of Dread. And so it makes us able to go through monos while channeling and moving at the same time. It also gives us 24% less damage taken while channeling, and it's a fire necrotic spell, so we can also activate our overloads with it. This brings with it a heap of issues though, mainly mana. Huge mana. You see the channel cost 48 mana per second times 1.8. So it becomes quite harsh. Also this node brings with it a flat 8 mana cost. So it's a lot of mana. Luckily they have a less channel cost that splits it in half after all the efficiency nodes have been added, but this is something that has to be tested out. I know other people have tested this, and I'm going to look around to see how other people solved it, but right now I'm going in kind of blind, so we'll see how I do it. One possible solution is Wandering Spirits for mana. Another possible solution is this node on Chaos Bolts, which gives us mana against cursed enemies when we hit them, and everything is always cursed, because Fisher, you know the drill. Problem with this, we gain health against cursed enemies, and that brings us to the next pivotal point of gearing, which is the fact that due to the fact that we do not have leech anymore, we cannot leech, we are incentivized to go low life, right? And when you are low life, you don't want to gain health. Low life package, Lost Steps, Exsanguinous, Isadora's. Yeah, so we don't want this to give us too much HP. I think it's fine to do like this and get the Bone Curse, even though we will be gaining or health from this. Hopefully we have enough life drain per second that it doesn't matter, but we'll see. Now this brings us to yet another gearing point, because we want Bone Curse. The reason why we really want Bone Curse, it's quite a split. If you've seen other videos about Lock or replayed it, you know that a lot of things scale with Curse. Like we have less damage taken per Curse on target, more armor per Curse, and the passive bonus on Warlock is 4% more damage per Curse. So we are very, very much incentivized to stack curses. However, there's also another reason, and that's the Pearls of the Swine. Now, a lot of you probably thought it was weird that we talked about stacking Health Leech, and yet we aren't going for Bleeding Heart that has up to 9% leech. The reason is because Pearls of the Swine is a really good amulet with comparable? Yeah. It has almost the same damage potential as a Bleeding Heart. However, it also gives us a lot of resistances. We get physical res, necrotic res. Necrotic res doesn't really matter because we are an acolyte, but we also get all res, we get vitality, we get all attributes. So for example, the vitality in all attributes is up to 16 poison res as well, which is good. So it's a really strong amulet. Why is it comparable in terms of damage? Well, it's because it applies Decrepify, which in and of itself gives us a 50% more damage bonus from damage over time. in other words, for our Witchfire and other ailments. It's also another curse, which then gives us less damage taken, more armor, and more damage. Right? Very synergistic, really cool. I'm not going to go into these things, you will see it on the planner. It's just damn chance, ignite chance. So hopefully this doesn't fuck it up. Otherwise, we might have to find another way to apply Bone Curse, which there are loads of. For example, if we don't use Wandering Spirits for mana, we can go Transplant and get Frenzy and this mana, 30% mana. And this also makes us able to apply Bone Curse on arrival. So this is another choice, both for mana and for Bone Curse. Could be used. However, there's another side of this coin. And although I haven't told you actually about the Witchfire damage, I can tell you, without skipping a lot of the math, we will at least be doing somewhere around 5 to 10 million damage per second with Witchfire in and of itself. That means I'm not counting Chthonic Fissure or Chaos Bolts. The Witchfire in itself should, unless I've just done the worst calculations of my life, between 5 and 10 million damage. With the multi from Fire Starters, with the multi from Hungering Souls, which is a 40% multi when they are afflicted by Spreading Flames. I used it in my Infernal Shade as well, really good for just multi. However, and it's crazy to say this, but we don't know if that damage is enough. We don't know if 5 to 10 million damage is necessarily enough. So what you can do is use Drain Life. Which brings us to gearing yet again. As some of you have seen, we are using a Stygian Coal. Stygian Coal is really cool. First of all, we get Ignite and a time chance while channeling, which more multi for our Witchfire. And it also makes Stygian Beam into a hit spell, kind of. It makes it so Stygian Beam, or Drain Life, I guess it's called, can apply ailments on hit. And we have a lot. 555 ignite chance. That's 5.5 ignites per hit. And this is 6.7 damned on hit. So what happens if we do Drain Life and we make it persist without having to channel? We give it even more damage stacks and we give it damage. In theory, and I am a big skeptic of this, but in theory, if we can sustain the mana, we can use Drain Life while simultaneously channeling Ghost Flame, simultaneously having the Chthonic Fissure out, while also getting the 40% more damage from Hungering Souls. So on single target I would use this, not during clear. Hopefully the Witchfire damage in and of itself will carry us in monos. So this would only be for bossing. And it would give us a lot of more damage, or more single target damage. How this tree is supposed to look like, I have no clue. Probably trying to get as much less mana cost as possible. Is struggling to get our mana. It could be that we need to get rid of this 40% multi to go either Transplant for mana or Wandering Spirits for mana. We don't know. But yeah, so with this build, and I get it, it's a very boring video because there's no gameplay. The reason why is because there's literally no gameplay of this, unless you're on CT, I guess, but they aren't allowed, I think, to show it anyway. But this should be Ellie's Righteous Fire. where you just run around after having overloaded, which you can do with either Fissure or Ghost Flames. You just run around, inflict everything with Witchfire, it deals millions of DPS, and everything should die. Last little disclaimer. And I know it's a shabby video. I'm not good as a YouTuber. Because I'm not a YouTuber. It's just for fun. If you go in and you try to experiment this, you will see that the Witchfire damage here is very wonky. It's super duper duper high. And this is supposedly even before you multiply it by this times 0.66. So about, let's say, times 7 or something. I can't remember. I did it on paper and pen, or with pen and paper. But anyway, this number is super wonky. LE Tools doesn't calculate it correctly. It thinks that the different ailment more multis on Witchfire is multiplicative with each other. They are not. So it's not times 70 times 134. It's times, with these numbers in specific, it's about times 200. So don't trust this number. If you want to play this build, if you want to do different versions of it, do the calculations by yourself. You cannot trust this at all, so you shouldn't. And yeah, that's all for me. If you have any questions, I might not be able to answer them. I haven't played it. The season is not out yet. So, but I'll try my best. Anyway, thank you and goodbye.